Good afternoon. Today is the 10th of October. I am here just borrowing Mr. James Coleman, the Rubbish Mechanics 1987 Renault 11 for this video. And it's time to answer some of the questions which you posed a couple of days ago. I've had some really good questions, and hopefully you'll enjoy the answers. Thank you to everybody who's taken part in this. I appreciate it very much. First off, one of my regular viewers, Trev Ali. I do apologise if I pronounce anybody's name incorrectly, by the way. He says, if you could go back to the 1990s, which new Ford, Vauxhall or Rover model and spec, one of each any year, would you bring back to the present? Also, what other YouTube motoring channels, other than the obvious mentioned ones, do you watch? I think if we're looking at Fords first, I very much like the Orion Mark III. I think it's called. It's based on a Mark V Escort in the sort of upper trim levels. That I think is a very smart looking car. Probably the sort of post facelift Orion Mark III with the little chrome grille. Probably a gear or similar, probably in blue. The Vauxhall, it'll have to be a Cavalier Mark III post facelift. I'm going to go for a CDX 2.5 litre saloon in dark green. There you are, very specific. The Rover, probably my favourite. That would be the 1998 Rover 420 GSI Tourer, again in dark green, a post facelift model. Which, particularly with the beige leather interior, is definitely a car I'd have tomorrow, subject to not having to drive it in the ultra low emission zone. In terms of the cars on YouTube that I watch, the other channels that produce car content, I've actually made a video already about that, and I'll link to that in the description below. Next question is from Steve Staff, again another one of my regular viewers, and he says, do you think today's cars are over-engineered due to the abundance of technical gizmos in them, and do you prefer this, or would you rather have a more hands-on driving experience such as the car we had in the 80s? I personally drive a modern car, but much prefer the driving experience of a 1980s hot hatch. Gosh, that's a really interesting question. The two cars I drive most often were built in 2017 and 2014, and the most comfortable car that I have is the Seat Toledo. That's incredibly comfortable for long journeys, and it's got just enough equipment in it to keep me kind of happy. I would like probably active cruise control and lane keeping assist in it, and automatic lights and wipers, but apart from that, the specification is virtually perfect for me. I do like having a car that I know is going to work, I know is safe, I know gets very good fuel economy, I know is well equipped and is comfortable for long journeys like that. Is it the last word in dynamism? Not really. Is it the most exciting car in the world? Probably not, but I really like it. I love that car, and I'll be very sad to sell it. The NG3 we have, that's got the right level of features in it for my wife and I who both drive it. It's more reminiscent really of kind of an 80s hot hatch because it's got hydraulic power steering and a very firm ride. So yeah, it handles very well. It's a very good car. I've got 2 reviews MG3s on my channel if you want to see that. But it does have a lot of other features on it, like air conditioning, automatic wipers, automatic lights, Bluetooth, cruise control, parking sensors. They're all things that we kind of tend to use. We tend to, drive cars which have those. My wife and I, we tend to like having those features on a car. Even if, possibly some would say you don't need all that stuff on the car. I do like older cars. I like driving older cars as well. I don't like them for longer journeys. I find them uncomfortable. My Rover's a nice, comfortable car, but I don't find that as comfortable as a Seat because there's no cruise control in it, and the position of the accelerator pedal tends to give me a bit of cramp if I've actually used it. I don't know why. It's a bit strange. Anything else that I've driven long distance, I've driven the Proton 1.3 for 200 miles or something like that. So I've driven older cars like that. They're kind of fun. They're simple and everything, but I think for everyday practicality, I'd have to stick with the modern cars. Although having an older car as a second vehicle is a really, really good thing. So next question is from the Driveway Kid Canic TDK. It says, good afternoon. I'm a big classic car enthusiast. That's a good thing to be. And I wanted to know your opinion on using a classic car as daily transportation or as a commuter car. Do you think it could still be practical and fun? And if you had to buy a reasonably priced, at least 40-year-old car for daily driving, what would it be? Diesel, LPG or petrol? What type of body shape? Simple answer to that. I would buy a Triumph Dolomite. I used to have a Dolomite. I had a 1500 SE from 1980. Those cars were released in 79, although the shape of a Dolomite goes back to 72, and then it was based on the 1500, which was released in 1970, and then it's based on the 1300, which was released in 1965. So there's a lot of different variants on the same theme there. I prefer the later Dolomites because they have things like electric fans and things like that to keep the car cool. They have a slightly kind of restyled sort of exterior in various minor places. They have things like headrests, which I think are a good safety thing to have. I would have a Dolomite. I probably wouldn't put an LPG kit on it. I'd probably go for 1850 HL or a Sprint. Obviously, a Sprint is the car that's used by Lewis Collins in the first series of the Professionals up until about sort of 2/3 of the way through. So yes, obviously it's a car I'd have. I love Triumphs. Whether or not it's practical, for me, not really. I did have 1500 SE, as I said, and it just wasn't very practical. The driving position wasn't the most comfortable. I find that in lots of older cars I drive. Alfa Romeo GT Junior I've driven, that wasn't particularly comfortable. Ford Granada Mark II, that was better, but still my head was right up against the sunroof in the position I needed it to be, even though it's got electric seats. I didn't find it actually that comfortable personally. It depends as well if you know what you're doing in terms of fixing a car. I personally don't really. I know how to check a car over for a client, and that's what I get paid to do, but I don't tend to fix things myself, which maybe I should do, but I'm just not that interested in that, if that makes sense. I'm not like people like Ian Seabrook or Matthew Richardson, Vera's Driving, or Mr. Coleman, Mechanic. I don't find that kind of thing as interesting as they do. I still find it quite interesting, but not interesting enough for me to want to learn too much about it. If you are somebody who really likes doing that and isn't worried about, maybe some parts availability or things like that, although there are some classics which have amazing parts availability, some of them don't. The Dolomite is an example of a car which has quite good parts availability, but it's not, I would say, like the best one. Don't get me wrong, I love classic cars. I love things like Capris, Dolomites, Triumph 2000s, Ford Granada Mark II. They're some of my favourites, but I probably wouldn't use one as a daily run around, just for the reasons I've mentioned. I just don't want to spend all my time having to fix it, and I prefer to make something that's going to work and is practical and economical and has the right sort of level of comfort and features for me. Another one of my regular viewers, Andy G, asks, good evening, sir. My question is, if money was an object, what car would it be classic or modern? Would you like to own? Um, well, it's going to have to. I think we're going for one car. Like, if you had just one car, what are you going to buy? I'm going to be really boring. I'm going to say I'd have a 2019 Seat Leon ST 1.5 TSI Excellence, probably the DSG gearbox one. I think I'm going to have to go for a modern car. There's just one car to own. If I only had one, I'd prefer to have more. But those are great. I have a review of the Leon on my channel, and that's the one that ticks all my boxes. They're still making the first generation Leon ST, which is the third generation Leon, but the first generation ST, that is the specification I prefer. I don't like the FR with its very, very kind of hard suspension in it, although most people quite like it. I prefer the Excellence with all the extra bits and bobs on it. That I'd have a DSG, because the manual gearbox, sometimes if you don't give it enough revs and don't let the clutch up, it can be a little bit difficult to sort of set off sometimes. That's what I have, the 150 TSI 1.5 DSG, the Seat Leon ST Excellence. I think I'd probably have one of those. It does everything you need to do. It's good on economy. It's got a twin cylinder mode to get a better economy. It's reasonably fast. It's very practical. It's well equipped. It's not too big. I did think of, kept saying the Kia Optima SW plug-in hybrid, but those are a lot more expensive and they're quite big. I like the technology, the idea of having a plug-in hybrid, but that's a little bit on the large side for me. And they're also a lot more expensive than the Leon ST. So yeah, I think if I was just to have one car and just one, obviously I have more than one at the minute, I have three, that would be probably what I would choose. So penultimate question comes from Ilyas Lamari, and this is good evening, but good evening. My question is about the 500 car challenge. Yeah, that's good. That starts tomorrow, so that's a good question. How are you going to value the Rover for a customer, or I think it's add value, and can you make a profit? Is it a case of good marketing and presenting the car on the well-known websites, or do you have another strategy? Well, I actually have had a bit of experience of this, because I've taken two Rovers to Santa Pod before. One was a 1996 Rover 416 SLI, the HHR shape. It was a saloon. Again, an automatic Honda D series engine, just similar to the F series in my Rover 620. And also a 2003 Rover 25 1.4 IL. That was a manual, that one. I just kind of put them on eBay or Auto Trader, and somebody market them quite locally, because it's a car that isn't worth more than £500, and just be very honest about the condition of the car. Whether or not I actually mention whether we just hand the pod or not, I just leave it to just my discretion. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends. If the car's not been affected by anything and it's been checked over and everything's okay, there's no particular reason to kind of say, unless someone asks, and of course be truthful. Yeah, we took it for a challenge. That's fine. But you don't necessarily need to say that in an advert, unless you're marketing to the people who were kind of watching your video. It's good to be truthful, but sometimes there's things you don't necessarily need to say just in the advert. Obviously, someone asks you, and you should say what you've done. But if they don't ask about it, and the car's not been harmed in any way by a challenge, which generally the car that takes into put aren't harmed by a challenge, they're fine. Then yes, and there will, the car and all the cars that we have the challenge, including this Renault, they will be available for sale at the end of Saturday. That's just the case. And if you want to buy any of them, the Celica, the Hyundai, the Rover, or this Renault, then get in touch with me at japl745@hotmail.com, and I'll, this Rover particularly speak to me. The others, I'll pass the message on to them. The Planet Auto, I'm not sure are going to actually maybe thinking of keeping that Honda, so maybe they're not going to actually offer it in the market or not. So just for the other four, then yes, I'm sure someone will really want them. So far they turn out to be really, really good cars, all of them, which is fantastic. The Honda's probably the best condition because it's in daily use, actually. So that's why they'd probably want to keep it. So yeah, there we are. I hope that answers your question. And finally, we got Nicholas Owens, another one of my regular viewers. So thank you, Nicholas. I'd like your opinion on supercars. Well, I'm very happy to give my opinion on supercars. Are they a waste of money with speed cameras, speed bumps, servicing, depreciation in the parts, etc.? Would you spend the money on a supercar or a cheap family car and a luxurious holiday instead? Well, in some ways, you can buy something like, I don't know, a Cupra Ateca or a Seat Leon ST Cupra, something like that if you want. Volkswagen Golf R, Hyundai i30N. I don't know, maybe the Kia Proceed GT. You know, there's loads of these fast but practical cars which you can buy, and I think for me, I just have one of those. If I really wanted a really fast car, I'd have one of those. Now, I don't like cars with really, really hard suspension. Any firmer than our MG, I just wouldn't want to own one. I just don't like cars with very hard suspension. So that probably rules out a lot of supercars for me. The depreciation's not good on something like a McLaren, particularly. The depreciation on those aren't particularly good. And also, yes, exactly, because all the things you've mentioned, things like, you know, scratching into speed bumps, really expensive servicing, hard to park, then they're not things I particularly like. I don't like any of those things. I mean, I don't mind about depreciation so much. If you're buying a second-hand one, it's loads of money, and that's not really an issue. But servicing can get expensive, parts can get expensive. I'd much rather have something like, you know, Skoda Octavia VRS Estate. I've driven one of those, that was pretty fast. Something like that. I just think it's a much more practical proposition every day for to own, and I'm not sure if I had, you know, an Aston Martin DB9 or whatever, I'd actually end up using it very much. It would probably just sit there, and I'd be kind of afraid I'd go out in it, and you know, it'd be too expensive to run. So yeah, I think they're great. I think they're good for benchmarks, and I'm looking forward to driving at some point Audi R8 on a track. There's a track near Hampstead where you can drive all kinds of things like a Gallardo and an R8 and a Bentley Continental GT, and I want to drive an Audi R8 on the track. I think that'd be brilliant. But in terms of actually wanting to own one, I'm not entirely sure, but like that's something I would do. So hope you found that video to be informative. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, particularly about the Sandapod challenge. And leave a like and a comment below. As I said, don't forget to get in touch with me at japl745@hotmail.com if you wish for me to pass your details on to any of the people who are wanting to sell their cars at the end of the Sandapod challenge. That's what we're doing. We're selling all of them. And also visit my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. If which is a source of car for you, the other way around, I'd love to do that too. Please visit my website. It's www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk and use the contact tab on the front page to get in touch with me directly. Thank you ever so much indeed for watching, and thank you to everyone who contributed to those brilliant questions.